So my final application project is over 12th grade U.S. government, specifically looking at immigration. And so looking at their learning objectives, the first, or the learning objective I use is stated number 2, and this is individuals have rights and responsibilities. Specifically, that benchmark we're going to focus on is that students will investigate and connect the rights and responsibilities of individuals with contemporary issues. So looking at American citizenship, what does it mean to be an American citizen, and then connecting that specifically to immigration. And so what are our duties as a U.S. country or U.S. or the United States in regards to immigration. And so looking at the learning objectives, specifically, students will be able to organize information over the United States immigration system and its possible solutions. Students will be able to present which immigration policy they believe to be the best for the United States. So we are going to be doing some research on the immigration system, doing some research on some possible solutions for our immigration system, maybe the gaps that our system has in place. Looking at creating a graphic organizer, and then they get to choose what system they think is the best, and then create an infographic over that solution. So that's where those learning objectives and then the standards come from. Both of those align with the learning theories that I chose, which is cognitivism and connectivism. So cognitivism, I'm focusing on the meaningful learning and the discovery learning. And so I'm trying to make this as meaningful as possible. It's not just here are some vocabulary words over immigration, hope you learn them. It's more along the lines of, okay, let's look at what our immigration system actually is, and then how can we possibly make it better? How can we tweak it to make it the best system that our country can have? And so that goes along with that discovery learning that I'm going to be invoking in the students. So not only am I sort of giving them the information over, okay, here's how our immigration system works, but I also want them to discover and learn what are the best options for our immigration system. So they do get to work with other people. They do get to go onto the internet and research some of those different policies to help solve this issue that is probably going to be an issue for a long time, but it gives them some of that control in their own hands. So that discovery learning, using problem-based scenarios that force students to go beyond memorization. Going along with that, the second theory is connectivism. So connectivism, I'm focusing a lot on like the group collaboration, connecting what do they know about immigration, what do they know about citizenship, to, okay, here's what the best solution, or here's what they think the best solution is. So making those connections that way through peer interaction, through other sources, of not just pulling information from themselves, but also using other sources. So specifically in this case, it's going to be Google and all the other websites that Google has to offer, some of the like American immigration websites that they can go and they can pull information off of. So again, the idea that learning happens outside of just a single student. It's not just what do they know, what can they provide, it's what can the world provide to them, what do they have access to, resources to, that can help provide them with a meaningful answer in their discovery learning. So looking at the lesson outline, I'm just going to run through this pretty quickly because it is all right here. So the first thing that they're going to do is they are going to answer a discussion board question on their own. So that question is, what does citizenship mean to them, and what does it mean to be an American citizen? So they have a couple minutes to sort of answer this question on their own. So they can sort of brainstorm what they really think citizenship, what American citizen means. And then I have them have a class discussion. And so they give students time to respond on their own, but then it also gives them time to hear what their peers have to say. Maybe their peer says something, maybe a classmate says something that they probably wouldn't have thought before, but they're like, oh yeah, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely what I believe. So it gives them time to maybe add to their discussion. It gives them time to feed on each other and build a definition of what citizenship actually is and what it means to be an American. Using questions to have students access and utilize information is a big part of cognitivism. It's that thinking about thinking. It gives them opportunity to dive just a little bit deeper. The next step then would be to pass out the How the United States Immigration System Works article, and I have student materials later on in this PowerPoint, and I'll show you what that article looks like. But this article is pretty long, and so one of the ways that I chunk it up for them is that I have them highlight, question mark, and put an exclamation point next to information that is either questioning to them, important to them, or things that they found surprising. And so the exclamation point is information they found surprising. Question mark is information that they still have questions over. And so like it's the idea that they can read an article and say, okay, I don't understand this, or okay, I have another question. I have an added question to this now that I have this other key piece of information. And then the other thing that the last thing I have them do is highlight. So this article is pretty lengthy, and so there are different sections to this article, looking at family-based immigration, looking at employment-based immigration, and so I want them to highlight the main takeaways from each section. So this is sort of that part of chunking that the cognitivism looks at. It's that chunking technique by summarizing maybe long pieces of text into smaller paraphrases. So that way, instead of having to memorize or remember all of this article, they can remember, okay, family-based immigration, this is what I need to know. Or employment-based information, this is what I need to know. After they read that article, I then have them turn to their shoulder partner, and their shoulder partner and them are going to talk about just the main things that they took away, the highlighted piece of information. I want them to paraphrase to each other what they understood, and again, maybe this is going to be clarifying to some people. But then after the shoulder partners have time to discuss their highlighted information, we're then going to have a class discussion over the question marks and over the exclamation points. And again, this gives them time to decompress after that article. After that, once we talk about how the immigration system works in the United States, we're going to look at, okay, what are some of the solutions to help fix either our system how it is, or to fix the illegal immigration that's coming into our country. So I give them a couple of different options, and they always have the chance to maybe add in some more. But just the options that I give them are things like fully open borders, increased border security, amnesty, the red card solution, DREAM Act, and expanding the H-1B visa programs. And so they have sort of that option, and we go through each one of those just briefly so I can share with them, tell them a little bit about what each one of these are and what each one of these do, and what they focus on. And then I have them get with a partner, and then them and their partner have to decide, pick one of those immigration solutions that they feel like may be the best solution for our immigration in the United States. And then they have to do some research and create an infographic. And so I provide them with a graphic organizer, and I make them fill out that graphic organizer before filling in or creating their infographic. Because there's a lot of things that maybe they don't understand about immigration. They don't even know where to look for immigration. They don't know how to be persuasive about an immigration solution. I have them look at and fill out a graphic organizer that sort of I give them leading questions about employment, about the workforce, about the safety of our country. And so they fill in those questions as they do that research, and then they use that graphic organizer to then create an infographic, using that information they found to create an infographic. And then that infographic, again, it has to be persuasive, and by the end of their creation of that persuasive infographic, they then present that to the class, and the class decides, okay, which one was the most persuasive? And so that gives us time to talk about persuasion and how to do that correctly. But the infographic, again, it's just the graphic organizer is just a way to provide that meaningful learning, help organize their thoughts, organize information, to then transfer that to that infographic. The infographic is sort of focusing more on that connectivism. It promotes that group collaboration and discussion. It allows students to not only hear their peers' different viewpoints, but also like all of those different viewpoints and perspectives on the internet as they're researching. And again, it just focuses on that process of connecting. So what do they remember about citizenship at the very beginning? How did they define citizenship at the very beginning? And then how does that translate to our immigration process? Is there a way for people to easily immigrate into the United States, or should we block some of that off? So looking at the assessment then. So the main assessment is going to come from the infographic. I do have a rubric that I created, and that's going to be the main assessment. But again, keeping in mind that that's not the only thing that I'm going to be looking at and really looking at throughout the lesson. Yes, the rubric is the only thing that I'm going to be concretely assessing, but when they are writing their discussion board, I'm looking at their written words, but also the words that they're speaking in the class discussion. When they're doing their close reading strategies, I'm looking at, okay, are they writing down symbols? Are they highlighting? I'm going to be looking at their graphic organizer. Are they participating in filling out that graphic organizer, or are they being a passive partner in that case? But the rubric is going to be the main one. And I do this again because of that sort of that idea of discovery learning. No one infographic is going to be the absolute same. Everybody's going to come at and attack this project a little bit differently. And I don't want to spearhead this, and so all projects have to look the same. Everybody's learning is going to be different. Everybody's infographic is going to be different. And so that's why I am using the rubric as the assessment and not maybe like, okay, this has to match mine exactly sort of thing. So some of the materials, here's the materials again, how the United States immigration system works. I'll show you, it is a pretty lengthy document, but you are able, with the close strategy symbols, they are able to break it down, chunk it up, which is again a big part of the cognitivism. If it loads, there you go. Family-based immigration, there's employment-based immigration, so on and so forth. So the close strategies is really important when trying to break down and allow students time to take in some of that information. The next one is the graphic organizer. So there you can see on the right the graphic organizer and what that looks like. One thing that I do want to point out is that the question at the very top is sort of a general question, easy question for them to just like write their thoughts down, write a quick research on that. But then as you go down further, it gets a little bit more critical. They have to analyze that information. Okay, how does their policy really impact things like national security, or impact things like the economy? How does it treat citizenship? How does it impact the workforce? And so it allows them to critically think, but also write down those thoughts so they can then use that in their infographic. The last student material is then the rubric, and again, here you have the rubric, and they can see what they need to accomplish in their infographic. They can see what they missed if they got any points docked off. One of the big things is if a student didn't do very well on the infographic, one thing that you could do as a teacher is you could say, okay, you have time to maybe make some corrections, but I want to see your graphic organizer. We need to look at your graphic organizer, because more times than not, if their infographic isn't very good, it's probably because they didn't put enough time and effort into their graphic organizer and finding the information for each one of those questions, because then they won't properly understand what that solution does. And so they can't create an infographic. So that's one way that you could do sort of a remedial hookup with that.